drawing and explaining Hermitcraft badly. Now, quick disclaimer, I'm going through Season 6 through Season 9 entirely from memory. So if there's something that I'm explaining poorly or just completely forgot, that is entirely my bad. Now let's get started. So first we are starting off with Season 6, and this is the one that I probably remember the least. Actually, it might be Season 7, but that wouldn't be surprising as Season 6 is the first season that we're going over and the first season I actually watched of Hermitcraft. And this was when Grian was first introduced to Hermitcraft, and there was also a mustache stealing machine, meant to steal Mumbo's mustache. Why was that a thing, and why is that the only thing I could remember? I have no idea. And then there was the Hermitcraft Civil War, and to quote DocM77 in Hermit Gang, it all started when Grian touched DocM's redstone. And then they settled it out through this huge server-wide game of Capture the Flag. Yep, that happened. And if I was going to change anything about this illustration, I probably would have put it in lyrical order. That way it would be Doc M. Wells Night then False Symmetry, rather than Doc M. Wells Night Impulse, because then we're just completely skipping over False. And no, I did not draw an Exuma Void or Rendog. At a certain point, it's just too many people. And also, even if I was going to include Impulse, I would put Tango head-to-head with Impulse. Because, lyrically, Impulse had this entire line of, "Why did you betray me, Tango?" Yet I put him up next to Zombie Cleo, who is mentioned in Rendog's verse. So yeah, that's my bad. Anyway, on to Sahara. Sahara was this mega shop that was co-owned by Grian, Iscal85, and Mumbo Jumbo. Now, Grian did have his own little newscast bit to advertise Sahara, and there was also when Ariana Grande, that was a bit in there. I don't remember much else of the bits that were in there. Like, I don't know what the other stories were. I also know that Scar, actually I don't know this, but I'm pretty sure Scar had his own little news station as his own little bit as well, because I'm pretty sure he was neutral during the entire thing. Like, Mumbo was a double agent in the Civil War, but Scar wasn't on either side, so I think he had a news station thing to, like, record what was happening in the Civil War, because he wasn't a part of it. So I think that was a thing. And that was Season 6. Moving on to Season 7, this is the one that I probably remember the least about. And I don't know why, because I'm pretty sure I watched most of Season 7. So I think I just forgot it all. But starting off with Grumbot, Grumbot was a mayoral candidate helper robot, essentially. And if you couldn't guess by the name, he was essentially made by both Grian and Mumbo Jumbo to help Mumbo run for mayor. Mumbo did not nominate himself for mayor, Grian did. And Grumbot's great idea was to make a poster and paste it around everywhere. And this did not work. Grian actually trapped another mayoral candidate, Good Times with Scar, in a room entirely filled with Mumbo posters. And he's like, "Oh yeah, tell me more about this plan, this is cool, tell me what it is." And Grian panics because he's like, "This is the plan, we don't have anything else." Other than, I think, giving people mustaches, it got so bad that Mumbo actually needed to hide his head with a paper bag because his head was shaved in mustache shapes because everyone was having mustaches. But yeah, Mumbo didn't win, neither did not False Symmetry, Stress Monster. She was also a mayoral candidate, I believe. Good Times with Scar won. And one of his mayoral promises was to have HEP, I think it was HEP, Hermit Environment Program, replace all of the mycelium in the shopping district with grass blocks. I don't know how that protects the environment if you're replacing all of the native turf with grass, but okay. But Grian was so pissed about it that he created the Mycelium Resistance, which I'm pretty sure also had Etho and Impulse as members. That's not the main thing I remember about it. The main thing I remember about it is that they had an emergency meeting button, and that HEP eventually found out about it. But yeah, that's the main thing about Season 7. Moving on to Season 8, this is when Pearlescent Moon was introduced. I think. Now, the reason I am not sure about it is entirely stupid, so bear with me. Pearlescent Moon and somebody else, I believe it was Scar, but I could be wrong on that, was stealing B-Dubs' clocks. Yes, you heard me right. They were stealing his clocks. And that sounds more like a Season 7 thing than a Season 8 thing. So if she was introduced in Season 7 and not Season 8, then my sincerest apologies. I don't remember her in season 7. I feel like I would have remembered her if she was part of the mayoral race, but I don't. So I feel like Derp Coin was a thing in season 7. I feel like that was more of a season 7 thing than stealing Beat-Ups' clocks. But yeah, either way, Pearlescent Moon, Impulse, Mumbo Jumbo, Good Times with Scar, and Green were all part of Bodum. And Bodum had this Bodum pole, made entirely of boats. They had a Bodum hole that went to the void. I believe all of them died to it at some point. Yeah, that was a huge thing. They all had a bunch of mega bases. They all wanted Scar to build at one of their mega bases. They had this entire, like, signs of, like, Scar built here. They also had, well, they didn't have Pearl move her base around. Pearl was like, hey, everybody's bases is pointing towards the Bodum pole. I'm just going to entirely deconstruct my mega build and rearrange it so that way it's pointing towards the mega build at the Bodum pole. So that they're all pointing towards it. I don't know why you would deconstruct your entire mega base. That feels like a lot of work, but yeah. So No Wings Club, Big Eyes Club, and Buy Up Bodum. So I want to say that the No Wings Club and the Big Eyes Club were the same thing. I don't feel like I'm too wrong on that. Maybe I am. But Buy Up Bodum was essentially a prank war that Bodum had with a lot of people, I think. Mainly the Big Eyes Club. That's why I had them all as the same thing. I think they might have also had it with Doc M. I feel like he was his own thing, but I could be wrong. And the Tree War and Peace, Love, and Plants. So, Peace, Love, and Plants was Mumbo's whole thing going into season 8. But Green was like, yeah, he's not going to last for that long. Let me see if he's actually legit about this whole Peace, Love, and Plants thing. And Green was proven right in the end. First, he started by stacking a whole bunch of trees on top of each other, and is like, oh, haha, Mumbo's totally not going to destroy this because he finds it annoying. And, yeah. Mumbo tried to destroy everything with end crystals because he thought that would be more peaceful. But then he was like, you know what? If I attack all these zombies, they're technically undead. So that's basically putting them out of their misery. And yeah, so Graham was proven right. There was also Moon Big, because the moon was turning big and seemed to be going to the earth Majora's Mask style. All of the hermits reacted to this differently. Tango tried to blow up the moon. Beat-Ups tried to stay on Earth, and I think canonically got crushed by the moon. False Symmetry flew off on a giant eagle. I don't know how that works, but okay. And Bodum flew off of Earth off of Scar's spaceship. So, season 9. A lot of stuff happened, and this is the one I remember the most because, as of recording, and it's the current season, so hopefully I remember everything from season 9. I'm going to try to explain it all, but it's kind of hard to fit in 16 by 9 digital canvas, so bear with me. Gemini Tay was first introduced in season 9, and I don't have a reason like Pearlescent Moon to think otherwise, so I believe that that is correct. Moving on, we are moving on to where a lot of the hermits are like, we have too many diamonds, and not a lot of stuff is happening, we need some order, we need a leader. Well, mainly Rendog is thinking this, but bear with me. So Rendog is like, make me king, because it's totally not like season 7 happened, where we resisted a mayor, purely because he decided to change mycelium out for grass. And everyone's like, sure, cool, let's go with that. So, King Ren the King is now king, and he needs a royal court. So he made out this audition for people to be part of his royal court. So, in the end, Zombie Cleo, Joe Hills, Good Times with Scar as his character Hot Guy, who I'm pretty sure is meant to be a pun off of Hot Guy, and Cub Fan are all part of his royal court. And Beat-Ups, but that was also automatic. So, yeah, they were all brought onto the royal court for different reasons. I believe Cub Fan was because he was the royal magician. I don't know how he proved to be a magician. I forgot how, but he was. And they all are, like, made to fill out the king's orders. The only problem is that even the king doesn't know how to enforce his orders, because he makes these entire set of rules, like, thou shalt not mine diamonds, thou shalt not party, which was made after Impulse made a priority quest, that the king himself made to, like, make sure that things were going in the Hermitcraft server. He's like, host a royal event! And Impulse is like, how do I piss the king off the most? Oh, right, let's host it in his royal vault. So, that happened. And then Thou Shalt Eat Only Gigapies was another one. And Thou Shalt Not Make Priority Quests, because someone decided to make a priority quest of going to Grumbot for further instructions on the priority quest. Except it wasn't a priority quest, because that would be going against the king's orders. It was a priority adventure, because that's totally not a synonym for quest. There was also the entity, which was Grian's shop, and it also is connected to the rift, I think. It also has a bunch of shulkers on it. So Impulse, following another priority adventure, I think he's the only one that actually did any of the king's priority quests. And so he went to Grumbot for further instructions. And Grumbot's like, yeah, go to the content generator. And it's like, remove king claim. So Impulse is like, yeah, that only means remove the king's claim to the throne. I'll start a resistance. Grian just meant remove the king's claims to the shops, because King Ren the King was claiming them all for himself. So, yeah, Grumbot got pissed because Grian decided to change the instructions of Grumbot, and he's like, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. My Grian was sorry too, which really scared Grian, because if I hadn't said earlier, the entity is connected to a rift that's connected to multiple different dimensions, so this Grumbot isn't actually the Season 7 Grumbot, but rather a different Grumbot. Hope that makes sense. It's basically following Spider-Verse rules, where, like, it's alternate dimensions, but it's still somewhat similar. So Grumbot's main priority is still to make Mumbo mayor, but Mumbo isn't there at the moment, so he's just kind of there. So yeah, Impulse, back to him. He started the Soup Group Resistance with Impulse SV, Gemini Tay, and Pearlescent Moon. I like how I said that Impulse started a resistance with Impulse. Like that wasn't already a given. So yeah, the Soup Group Resistance. I believe Impulse, if my memories of Season 7 are correct, then he was part of that resistance, the Mycelium Resistance, but he never made a resistance. And they don't exactly quite know what to do for their Soup Group Resistance. Like, they changed Rendog's statue, but it's like, how do they resist without it being too much or too little? Like, how do they do that? So they went to the Resistance Assistance, also because Gem wasn't there at that point, so they kind of needed a third person. And Grian made a resistance assistance, because he's like, you know what, I'm not going to make a resistance. That's too predictable. So he indirectly made the resistance. He's like, I am going to help the resistance, because that's totally not joining the resistance. So he helps them blow up the king's throne. So the king got pissed. He's like, you know what, I'm going to make this challenge for the hermits, so that if the hermits win, I will not be king anymore, and they have their diamonds back. But if they lose, then I will be king. So he's like, you know what, Grian, help me resist the resistance, because your resistance assistance is still up because you forgot to take it down. So Grian's like, oh shoot, I totally forgot to take down my resistance assistance stand. So now he has to help the king with his challenge for diamonds. And he made his own room, like a quiz room, that's meant to, like, trick them into giving the wrong answers and killing them all. The other royal court members also had their own challenge rooms. Well, B-Dubs didn't really have a challenge room. It was just, like, fight him in between the challenge rooms. And he absolutely got owned every time because it's, like, 10v1. I don't know how that was supposed to work. So, Zombie Cleo and Joe Hills had red light, green light. And basically, Zombie Cleo would say red light or green light. And then if Joe Hills spotted somebody breaking the rules, he would blast them with a bunch of TNT. And Hot Guy, aka Good Times with Scar, had a Hot Guy parkour room, which had a whole bunch of microtransactions, because why not? And Cub Fan, the Royal Magician, had a parkour and Hoglin army. So after they beat a whole bunch of lava parkour, they would get trampled by a whole bunch of Hoglins that were renamed to, like, King's Personal Army, King's Personal Soldier, King blah blah blah. Because it's totally not like everybody there already knew that they were in a challenge room specifically made for the king. So that was a thing. And yeah, that was Season 9. Am I missing anything? Grian was also going through these challenges, because no one else actually knew that Grian was helping the king, sort of, with his challenges. And if you thought that was long, that was only part 1. Now on to Season 9, part 2. And brief intermission from the takedown of the king arc, we are on to the prank stick. Now, the prank stick has been going around from hermit to hermit for the past little while. Now it's on Jevin, and during this entire thing, he has been trying to minorly inconvenience the rest of the hermits going through this challenge. So, during the entirety of Red Light, Green Light, he was just falling off of the pillars constantly. So, during the final duel, they had to battle King Ren the King himself, but they kept getting destroyed every time. So, Grian was like, hey, anime betrayal, but also hint hint, nudge nudge, wink wink. Move over to my room, play my little quiz game, and get some good items. So they did, and they won, but the diamonds were mysteriously gone for some reason. And then they all went through the rift and went to the Empire server. Like they didn't just go through an entire removal of power. So now they're on the Empire server. And Grant trolled the heck out of Solidarity Gaming. And all of them had their own little interactions with the Empire server. False was going through this whole Empire's False, Hermit False thing. I need to look up on what happened with that in the end. Gem is just on both servers somehow and didn't bother to explain how to get back to the rest of the hermits. Pearl interacted with Mythical Sausage, who was, I think, worshipping Santa Pierla, and if that sounds suspiciously similar to Pearl, then don't worry about it, because that's probably important. Because she was on Season 1 of Empires, but then didn't go on to Empire Season 2 until Hermitopia was a thing. And Graham put every hermit in 3-4 aspect ratio to be smaller than everybody else. And also decided to attach Grumbot onto Hermitopia. And decided to become a killer robot and destroy the server because Mumba wasn't there and therefore he had no purpose. Because again, he's still a mayoral robot. So all of the hermits had to go back through the portal, which annoyed the Empire's people because their server was about to be destroyed by a Hermitcraft robot. So they're like, you know what, we're just going to go through the rift too. And now they're on the Hermitcraft server. Well, actually, as of recording this audio, they just left. And, yeah, that was way quicker than the Hermit's time on the Empire server. But, you know what? It was still a pretty good crossover. And that just about concludes today's video on Hermitcraft, but drawn and explained badly. Let me know in the comments down below if there was anything I could have improved upon or anything that I missed out. And if you want to watch content similar to this on this channel, then I'd recommend this animatic of Green being late Solidarity stream. So with that, I hope you all have a magnificent day, and I'll see you all later.